In the early 21st century, a bold promise emerged from Silicon Valley, a revolution in healthcare, making diagnostic testing cheaper, faster, and more accessible than ever before. At its heart was Theranos, a startup founded by Elizabeth Holmes, a charismatic entrepreneur with a compelling vision. She envisioned a world where a single drop of blood, obtained with a simple finger prick, could yield comprehensive health insights, performing hundreds of medical tests without the need for traditional venipuncture. It was a dream that captivated imaginations and promised to transform how we approach personal health. Elizabeth Holmes, with her distinctive voice and intense gaze, quickly became the face of this audacious venture. She cultivated an image of a visionary leader, drawing comparisons to tech giants like Steve Jobs. Investors, eager to back the next big thing, poured money into Theranos, swept up by the promise of its purported breakthrough technology. The company soared to unprecedented heights, attracting prominent figures to its board and forming partnerships with major retailers. The narrative was powerful, a young innovator poised to disrupt a stagnant industry, saving lives and fortunes in the process. At the zenith of its influence and public perception, Theranos commanded an astonishing valuation. The financial world, dazzled by its potential and its founder's persuasive rhetoric, propelled the company to unicorn status. Private investors, including some of the most prominent names in business and politics, believed they were investing in a paradigm-shifting technology. The valuation of $9 billion was not just a number, it represented immense trust and expectation placed on a company that claimed to have achieved the impossible. This monumental figure became a symbol of its apparent success. The central claim of Theranos was breathtakingly simple yet profoundly complex, a single device capable of running a vast array of medical tests from an incredibly small sample of blood. This was to be the Edison, a proprietary machine, compact and automated, designed to replace cumbersome traditional lab equipment. Patients would bypass needles and multiple vials, offering just a few drops from a finger prick to get results for conditions ranging from cholesterol levels to cancer markers. This promise of microsample testing was what drove the investment and the public's excitement. Beneath the polished presentations and ambitious claims, a stark reality festered. The revolutionary technology Theranos touted simply did not work as advertised. The Edison device, central to their promise of comprehensive, microsample testing, was deeply flawed and unreliable. It struggled to perform even a fraction of the tests it claimed, often yielding inaccurate or inconsistent results. This fundamental failure was the company's darkest secret, one that Elizabeth Holmes and her team desperately worked to conceal from investors, partners, and ultimately, patients relying on their diagnostics. To maintain the illusion of functional technology and continue operating, Theranos resorted to desperate measures. Instead of relying on their non-functional Edison machines, the company secretly began to use modified commercial blood testing analyzers from other manufacturers. These third-party devices were fundamentally different, designed for larger blood samples, not the single drop Theranos promised. Samples were often diluted to fit these machines, further compromising the accuracy of results. This clandestine practice was a direct betrayal of their core promise and a critical turning point in their deception. To manage this deception, Theranos operated what amounted to two separate lab environments. One lab, showcased to investors and the public, presented a facade of cutting-edge innovation, featuring their proprietary Edison machines, albeit often non-functional. The other, hidden from view, was where the bulk of the actual patient testing took place, utilizing the modified third-party devices. This bifurcated operation was critical to sustaining the illusion. It allowed Theranos to claim their technology was working while secretly processing samples on external machines, directly misleading all who believed in their public image. The heart of Theranos' fraud lay in its systematic deception of investors. Elizabeth Holmes and her team presented falsified demonstrations, showing off the Edison as fully functional when it was not. They provided doctored reports, exaggerating the capabilities and reliability of their technology. Wealthy individuals and seasoned venture capitalists were shown a carefully constructed reality, leading them to believe their multi-million-dollar investments were fueling a genuine scientific breakthrough. This deliberate misrepresentation was not merely hype, it was an active concealment of critical information that defrauded stakeholders of vast sums. Beyond financial fraud, Theranos' deception had far more serious implications. It directly endangered public health. Patients, believing they were receiving accurate and reliable diagnostic tests, were given results from flawed technology and diluted samples. These inaccurate results could lead to misdiagnosis, delayed treatment, or unnecessary interventions, putting people's well-being at severe risk. The promise of accessible healthcare had turned into a dangerous gamble with real human lives. This betrayal of trust was perhaps the most egregious aspect of the Theranos scandal. Despite the tight control and culture of secrecy, cracks began to appear in Theranos' meticulously constructed facade. Employees, witnessing the rampant inconsistencies and unethical practices, grew increasingly concerned. Some internally voiced their doubts, only to be met with dismissal or intimidation. These internal dissenters, many of whom were dedicated scientists, faced immense pressure. Their moral compasses, however, eventually led some to become whistleblowers, providing crucial insights to those outside the company who were beginning to question the incredible claims made by Theranos. Amidst the swirling rumors and growing unease, a critical figure entered the scene: Wall Street Journal reporter John Carreyrou. He began hearing whispers about Theranos' questionable practices and the fundamental unreliability of its technology. Carreyrou, a seasoned investigative journalist, recognized the potential gravity of these allegations. He understood that if true, this wasn't just a failed startup, it was a massive deception with serious implications for public health and investor trust. His decision to pursue the story marked the beginning of the end for Theranos' carefully crafted illusion. John Carreyrou's investigation was a masterclass in tenacious reporting. He meticulously gathered evidence, interviewing former employees who shared shocking details about the company's internal operations and the systematic fraud. He spoke with medical experts, reviewed documents, and analyzed public statements, painstakingly piecing together the true picture of Theranos' technological failures and deceptive practices. Despite intense pressure from Theranos' powerful legal team, which included threats and attempts to discredit his sources, Carreyrou pressed on, driven by the public's right to know the truth. On October 15, 2015, the Wall Street Journal published John Carreyrou's bombshell article, titled "A Prized Silicon Valley Startup Struggles." It laid bare the core truth: Theranos was secretly relying on commercial machines for most of its blood tests, not its proprietary Edison device. The article detailed the fundamental unreliability of Theranos technology and the company's efforts to conceal its failures. This exposé sent shockwaves through the tech and medical industries, shattering the illusion Elizabeth Holmes had so carefully constructed and marking the definitive start of Theranos' public unraveling. The Wall Street Journal exposé triggered an immediate and furious backlash. Investors, who had poured billions into Theranos, felt betrayed. Retail partners, who had integrated Theranos testing centers into their stores, faced public scrutiny and rapidly severed ties. Regulatory bodies, including the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services, CMS, launched investigations into Theranos lab practices, finding numerous violations. The company, once lauded as a visionary, now faced intense public, financial, and legal pressure, with its reputation in tatters and its future hanging by a thread. As the investigations mounted and the evidence of fraud became undeniable, Theranos rapidly imploded. Partnerships dissolved, investors pulled out, and the company's credibility evaporated. In 2016, CMS effectively banned Elizabeth Holmes from owning, operating, or directing a blood testing laboratory for 2 years. By 2018, faced with mounting legal costs and a complete loss of trust, Theranos ceased operations entirely, liquidating its assets. The $9 billion valuation, once a testament to its perceived success, crumbled to zero, leaving a trail of disillusioned investors and jeopardized patient health. In June 2018, Elizabeth Holmes and her former COO, Ramesh Sunny Balwani, were indicted on multiple counts of wire fraud and conspiracy to commit wire fraud. The federal charges alleged that they engaged in a multi-million-dollar scheme to defraud investors and patients. The highly anticipated trial of Elizabeth Holmes began in August 2021, drawing immense public attention. prosecutors presented a compelling case, supported by whistleblower testimonies, internal documents, and expert analysis, detailing years of deliberate deception and reckless disregard for patient safety. After a grueling trial spanning several months, Elizabeth Holmes was found guilty on January 3, 2022. The jury delivered a verdict of guilty on 4 counts of defrauding investors, 3 counts of wire fraud and 1 count of conspiracy to commit wire fraud. She was acquitted on 4 counts related to defrauding patients, and the jury could not reach a verdict on 3 other counts. This conviction cemented her fall from a celebrated tech visionary to a convicted felon, sending a clear message about accountability for corporate deception, especially in sectors impacting public health. In November 2022, Elizabeth Holmes received her sentencing. She was sentenced to 11 years and 3 months in federal prison, followed by 3 years of supervised release. The judge also ordered her to pay $452 million in restitution to the victims of her fraud. Her co-conspirator, Sunny Balwani, received a slightly longer sentence of nearly 13 years. The prison term marked the somber culmination of a story that began with grand ambition and ended in disgrace, reinforcing the severe consequences of misleading investors and patients on such a massive scale. The story of Theranos and Elizabeth Holmes stands as a powerful cautionary tale, particularly within the often unregulated world of Silicon Valley startups. It highlights the dangers of unchecked hype, the allure of charismatic leadership without substance, and the devastating consequences of prioritizing ambition over ethical conduct and scientific integrity. The scandal prompted a greater scrutiny of health tech companies and underscored the vital role of investigative journalism in holding powerful figures accountable, demonstrating that even a $9 billion empire built on deception can ultimately collapse under the weight of truth.